Hey there, true believers. 2008 was a banger year for comic fans and Marvel, with their release of Iron Man in May and then The Incredible Hulk in June. If there was ever any speculation on whether they were going to be serious about a shared universe in the Iron Man after-credit scene, this film helped solidify that they were serious.
What if I told you we were putting a team together?
In the grand scheme of the first three phases, The Incredible Hulk often landed at the lower end of the fan favourite lists. But, as we are now in 2024, and we have seen so much worse, let's take a look back and see if it was as bad as we all thought it was. It's worth pointing out here that the colour schemes are going to play an important role in this movie, so rather than referencing every time we see the green, I'll just nod to a few, and you can find the rest. The credits act as an origin story while giving homage to the original 70s series. The credits actually build up the world beautifully, setting up motivations and connecting the world. You see Bruce by Betty's bedside, leaving, then Colonel Ross tracking him down. And in a blink and you miss it computer screen, you see the requisition from Stark Industries, making Tony's appearance at the end of the movie seem less of a shock. There's even a shield-headed document from Nick Fury. We are yet to have our first scene, and I've seen the origins of the Hulk. I understand why Ross is after him, and despite the sightings that listed him as Sasquatch, both S.H.I.E.L.D. and Stark Industries have an awareness of him. As the second movie to come out, and so close to Iron Man, I can't help but draw parallels between Stark and Banner. The opening shot of Bruce shows him meditating, while the computer tells us it's been 158 days without incident. This works well as an indicator to transformations and will help to understand the passage of time that we will see. It's interesting that Banner's focus is on impulse control, considering that Tony Stark had none. Hiding out in Brazil, he has etched out a simple life, attempting to stay away from stress. As an observant viewer, he is trying to learn Portuguese, a key word here being hungry. Watch out for that in a minute. His continued attempts at controlling himself gives me a feeling of an opposed nature to Stark. Whereas Tony started out as an arms manufacturer, the bad guy on the surface, here we see a good guy with a darkness underneath. This is evidenced when he sees a girl in the factory looking uncomfortable. He knows he shouldn't intervene, but he does anyway.
Não me deixo conforme. ¿Qué? Não van quando eu fome.
See? In case you didn't get the reference to the Hulk, the liquid in the bottle in the factory is green. He's handed a green leaf containing a flower, and when making contact with his friend, dubbed Mr. Blue, he is, you guessed it, Mr. Green. Also, when synthesizing the drug from the flower, it's green. These are just a few of the nods to the colour green that we're going to get throughout the film, so what I'm going to do is start circling them on screen as we go. We then get an obligatory Stan Lee cameo, and this is where the story starts. Colonel Ross gets reports of the gamma-radiated drink and where it came from. Something to note here is that William Hurt based his performance on General Ross on Captain Ahab, the obsessive captain who endlessly chased Moby Dick. What sells this for me is the opening interaction between Ross and Blonsky, where the latter asks if Banner is a fighter. Ross's response:
in the deaths of 2 scientists, a military officer, an Idaho State trooper, and possibly...
If this is true, and the Hulk is responsible for these deaths, then you can see why he's become obsessed. At his heart, he feels somewhat responsible for unleashing this monster. It also stands to reason that this is what drives Banner, along with his want to return to Betty. While rewatching the movie, I keep coming back to this reference to Moby Dick. The Hulk is akin to the white whale, a force of nature not to be trifled with, and yet Ross can't help himself. The introduction of the Hulk is very cinematic. Only getting glimpses of him and seeing him in the shadows builds the tension, much like that of the old horror movies like Alien and Jaws. Blonsky, for his part, is captivated by the Hulk's sheer power.
It's the most powerful thing I've ever seen.
As a bit of trivia, the music here as Bruce walks through the streets after he wakes up is the iconic piece from the old series. The conversation between Blonsky and Ross works as an important exposition on multiple levels, remembering that at this point in the MCU we only had Iron Man. The audience is exposed to so much in a few minutes. Firstly, that the military have been experimenting. Ross's explanation also works as an Easter egg for Captain America the First Avenger. Secondly, that they have continued trying to recreate the super soldier serum, using Bruce Banner. We also learn that he was unaware of what he was working on. Thirdly, we get to understand a little more of Ross's obsession and Blonsky's motivations.
You should be a colonel by now with your record.
Nah, I'm a fighter.
It's taken 2.5 weeks for Bruce to make it home. As Bruce makes it to the computer lab in the uni, there's a great transition from what he is seeing to his memory of the last time he was in a lab. The MCU gets a rep for being very cookie cutter when it comes to their movie making, so it's great to see the slightly more cinematic Hollywood. such as Bruce coming back at just the right moment to catch Betty's eye. The visual storytelling is fantastic. The way she peers round to see the swinging door as it comes into focus, as Leonard's face then blurs and the music swells. Everything moves in slow motion and begins to go silent as Betty goes to find him. I'm drawing our attention to this because it's done so well. In 30 seconds, and without it being said, we know that she loves him just as much as he loves her. And of course, in case you missed it, the obligatory moment in the heavy rain. I appreciate they didn't go for the kiss in this moment, as it would have been a little bit too much. As Ross goes into the cold storage, we get to see the clear markings of the canister. Dr. Reinstein develops the super soldier serum under Stark Industries, a feat we will see in Captain America: The First Avenger. Apparently, Ed Norton and Liv Tyler spent hours discussing their characters' lives before the appearance of the Hulk. The dialogue between them is so normal.
Well, at least let me walk you to the station.
Green has come up a lot so far in the colour palette, obviously, but here I feel like the representation for the Hulk is more important. We flick back and forth between them, each lonely in their bed with space for the other, the green tone of his sheets visualising the reason for their separation. Now is probably a good time to talk about the serum and its consequences. Super strength and speed come as part of the package, but another and maybe more important aspect is that it enhances those inner attributes of the person. I'm jumping forward, well, technically backward a bit here, but it's worth noting that Steve Rogers turned out the way he did because of the person that he was inside. He was worthy, whereas the Red Skull was ugly inside. We'll come back to this and what it means to the Gamma Infused version later, but for now, I want to draw our attention to this tiny interaction. Betty fussing over his hair and clothes is about appearance, and how he looks. A social convention, like our mums do when we're kids. Not being a kid though, Bruce accepts it a little bit more gracefully, as is expected of an adult. As the military bear down on him, you see the sheer joy in Blonsky's face. They surround him and trap him, and finally, Ahab catches his white whale. But not until the soldiers manhandle Betty and the Hulk comes out. This is the breach of another social convention. An interesting detail is that the effects team based the Hulk and the Abomination's movement on linebackers, and now I can't unsee it.
Blonsky, now you're up!
This is the first time seeing what the super soldier serum can do, and a tease of what's to come. Like Ahab, General Ross allows his obsession to get the better of him, and he repeats the same mistakes. Ignoring the comics, and only basing this in what is represented within the movie, the Hulk represents the balled up feelings of rage let loose like that of a toddler having a tantrum. Bruce Banner is a mild-mannered scientist, and it's expected on him to act in a certain civilized way. And personal to Bruce would be the want to protect the woman he loves. This is Ross's mistake, the mistreatment of his own daughter in pursuit of Moby Dick. Blonsky's folly is his single-track focus on being the best soldier, of being the best. And if this really were a tragic tale, then Betty wouldn't have survived all this. I love the understated moment when Hulk knocks his head because of Betty. His pose with one hand rubbing his head and the other one on his hip, not angry, just exasperated. The lightning scaring him as he looks to protect Betty from it continues the metaphor of the Hulk being Bruce's childlike rage, and in some ways, innocence. After a miraculous recovery, Blonsky is
Pissed off and ready for round 3.
The foreshadowing is all here for what he will become. The lesson being that the razor-sharp focus of vendetta makes both men truly blind to their actions.
How you feeling, man? Like a monster.
There is a reference to S.H.I.E.L.D. acting as another link to the Iron Man movie and building on what will become the MCU. On the way to meet Mr. Blue, Betty tries to get Bruce to try controlling the Hulk.
I don't want to control it. I want to get rid of it.
But this is the start of his journey with the Hulk. Samuel Stern, for his part, acts as a cautionary tale for the follies of curiosity.
I've always been more curious than cautious.
The scene of his lab with Bruce strapped to the table brings up imagery of Frankenstein and his monster. While explaining what he thinks has happened, Stern mentions the amygdala. This part of the brain acts as the emotional reactive centre, which, using our basic non-scientific theory, would make sense as the Hulk represents the molten heat of pure emotional reaction. As Stern leads them through the lab, Banner sees his error in trusting another scientist.
Has limitless applications.
As I find myself saying in many, many of my videos, and will be the same in future entries of the MCU, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But as we lead into the third act, we see that it's Stane's thirst for knowledge.
The goal is to do it better.
And Blonsky's lust for power.
I want more.
That means.
The mixture could be
An abomination.
Unfortunately, Stern's ultimate fate is left as an Easter egg. As of the making of this video, the MCU has not revisited it, which is somewhat of a shame. The camera work that follows the soldiers as they catch a glimpse of the abomination does a great job of seeing things from their perspective, and the shakiness of the cam gives the view that the ground could be shaking underneath. Blonsky's request,
"Give me a real fight!"
is almost answered by the soldier's question.
Sir?
It may be aimed at Ross, but it's really Banner he's asking. Will you respond? Banner, in kind, shows a true sense of emotional intelligence.
We made this thing. All of us.
And this ultimately becomes his power. Rather than pointing out blame or being angry, he accepts responsibility. Usually, when the Hulk emerges, it's a direct response to a negative stimulus. But here, Bruce is perfectly calm, and when the Hulk emerges, it's with purpose. The final battle is like two linebackers going at it. This is obviously, as mentioned before, by design. This final battle also proves Betty more right than Bruce, who until now has seen the Hulk as a monster inside of him. But this moment proves that Hulk and Bruce at their core are a hero, as well as being a nod to the classic comic book move. His defeat of Abomination is a result of the way that he fought throughout. Whereas Blonsky went for brute strength, the Hulk used more ingenuity to overcome his foe, and finally bringing him down with a lion's roar. Proving that he is the apex predator within the concrete jungle. The crescendo of seeing him on the run, the helicopters bringing a sense of continuation, like a dance they will never finish, despite what he's done. And of course, ending as we begin. Bruce is found once again, hiding out in the wilderness. The final shot, a precursor to the Avengers, and his smile and acceptance of the Hulk that is a part of him. As for the after credits scene, this acts more like an epilogue, and in some ways can be considered a more important scene than the one at the end of Iron Man. Yes, I know, seeing Nick Fury in all his glory was iconic, and the sheer mention of
The Avenger Initiative
was spine-tingling. But alone, it only acts as an Easter egg, a promise that might not be kept, and so relegated to the after-credits scene to be lost in time should things not go their way, like an afterthought or a wild dream. But this isn't an after-credits scene. This is the end of the movie. Introducing Stark directly links the two movies, making the Marvel Cinematic Universe official and proving that they were all in. Was the Hulk a perfect movie? No. But hopefully this retrospective helped a little towards appreciating the effort that was put into this little popcorn flick about a mild-mannered scientist that every now and then liked to smash!